Welcome to my course Design Sketching. Why am I outside? Well, we're going to go on a field trip to explore the world in perspective. We're going to have a look at all kinds of products and objects like parking meters, bus stops and buildings to see if we can understand what we actually see when we look at the world in perspective. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, we're in The Hague, my hometown. It's freezing cold and we're in front of the Mercure Hotel, which is quite a tall building, relative. And I'm looking at this building because I want to show something about perspective. The building is quite far away. We're like 200 meters from the building. And as you can see, the walls of the building, the vertical sides, are still fairly vertical in our field of view. And I want to show you the difference of what happens when I get close by that building. So let's go over there and have a look. All right, we're now about 10 meters from this building, so we're very close by. We actually have to look up to see the whole building. And when we look up, we see the roof lines of the building now converging. They slope down to an imaginary point in the distance on the horizon line. We see that on the left side of the building, and we also see it on the right side of the building. One other thing is that we see the vertical lines, all the windows, the vertical lines on the windows and the sides of the building. Previously we saw them going fairly straight and fairly vertical. Now we actually see that they also converge to a point somewhere up in the sky, the third vanishing point. Let's have a look at two very different point of views of the same city bench with me sitting on it. The first one is about 10 meters away and we're zooming in to show you the image. And I want you to have a look at the angles of the top and the seating of this bench and see where the lines go. So this is the second perspective, which is very different than the first one. We're now 1.5 meters away from the bench and we see that all the angles of the top and the seating are converging a lot more than in the first shot. I want you to observe again the angles of the seating and the top of the bench and see what it does in perspective. All right guys, it's too cold. We're gonna do the rest inside. See ya. Alright, let's continue our exploration into products in perspective, our field trip, indoors in my studio, where it's nice and warm, but also a bit smaller. I hope it's big enough to show you the effect, the difference of viewing an object from a distance and then from close by. Because if you understand what happens when you view an object from a distance and then from close by, and you see the effects, I think it becomes a lot easier for you to reproduce those effects in your own sketches. So let's have a look at the first point of view, the view from a distance. All right, so here's our trolley as it's seen from a distance of about 4 meters. To fully understand what we actually see, you need to develop a new way of looking at the world, at objects. And I'd like to show you what I see, so let me explain that. When I look at this object, I no longer see the trolley. I see a collection of lines and angles and surfaces. And the way I do that is I try to extend the edges of this object and extend them into the distance and see where they go. I do that on the top and the bottom and all these lines in between. I do it on the left side, but I also do it on the right side. So I take this edge, all these edges in between, the bottom edge, and see where they go. So that's to the left and the right, and we can do the same again for the vertical lines. So let's extend these ones to the bottom and the top and get a good sense of the angle that they make. And as you probably can see, they still go quite vertical in this point of view. So let's see what happens when we get close by. So here we see the trolley from about 1 meter distance. And as you can see, the view has changed quite a bit. The angles, the lines, the surfaces of this object are now converging a lot more than when we saw it from a distance. Again, try and extend all these edges, the top edge, the bottom edge, and observe the angles that they make and the convergence that they make. Do that on the left side of the product and on the right side of the product. Also, the third vanishing point becomes visible again, just like we saw in buildings. The only difference is that with the building, the lines were converging towards the sky, and the third vanishing point was all the way up in the sky. In this case, we're looking down at the object. The building, we had to look up to see the top, and in this case, we're looking down at the object. So the lines, the vertical lines, are now converging towards the bottom, to the basement of this building. All right, so let's take a look at this chair, which is a bit more complex than the trolley. But there's still a couple of edges that you can use to make sense of what you see. And what you're looking for is these horizontal edges. So the front of the seat and the top of the seat. They give you an impression of the angles of the convergence that these lines make. Now see for yourself. See if you can spot the difference between this point of view and the next one. So here's the same chair at a much closer range, and I think you're starting to see a pattern. Again, the lines, the horizontal lines of the top and the bottom of the seat start to converge a lot more, just like with the trolley. And this also creates a much more dynamic image. And I think that's important to understand. As a designer, you're in control of how much dynamic you want in your image. So if you want a more static image, take a point of view that's further away and use a lot less convergence. If you want more dynamics, come closer, add a lot more convergence, and you'll have a lot more dynamic image.